Thanks, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in from wherever you are and however you are tuning in. We appreciate you. My name is Caleb Talley. I am a startup junkie, and I'm joined by fellow startup junkie Jeff Amerine, my co-host. And how's it going, Jeff?
I'm glad to be here. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. And we're excited to be joined by our new friend, Farzad Rashidi. He is the lead innovator at Respona. And Respona is an all-in-one digital PR and link building software. But that's as far as I'm going to go, because I'm going to let him share all of that. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show. I'm very excited.
So give us the lowdown. Give us a little bit on your company, and then we'll get into sort of your Wolverine equivalent origin story.
Sounds like a plan. So, I started my career in marketing at a company called Visme. Have you guys heard of Visme before? Visme. Never heard of Visme? All right. No hard feelings. Have you gents heard of tools like Canva or Prezi?
Sure. 100%.
Gotcha. So for folks who are listening who haven't heard of Visme, we're an all-in-one, we'd say, visual asset creation tool for businesses. So the main differentiating factor we have with Canva is that we cater predominantly to the SMB enterprise. Canva is more of a D2C platform. And when we started the company, I think it was founded in 2013, back in the day, by my current co-founder, Paymon. We were basically a completely bootstrap company. We still are to this day. And I joined as the first marketing hire. And at the time, it was a bunch of designers and engineers who had gotten together and built this product. And I joined, and they're like, all right, here you go. Here's a product. Go sell this thing. So I had to sort of figure out what would be the main acquisition strategy for us, because as a bootstrap small business, there were some constraints. So one was paid advertising. So that SERP was sort of dominated with some of these guys like Canva had, I think at the time had raised close to about 100 million. So they were pouring in. Canva and Prezi were both pouring cash into paid advertising. Wasn't really a very scalable acquisition channel for us, because over time there's a diminishing return on ROI, because you double the ad budget doesn't mean you get double the conversions. Normally there's a diminishing ROI, as I mentioned. So it's sort of that customer acquisition costs catches up with LTV very quickly. And also at the same time, on the other hand, cold outreach for sales was sort of not a very economically wise, I would say, channel, just simply because our product was very affordable. So at the time, I think our subscriptions start at like $15 a month. So not a type of product you would hire US-based, sales reps and go door to door and start selling. So we basically sat down and we were like, all right, we settled on SEO as our main acquisition strategy. So we're like, okay, well, lots of companies are looking to create assets. And so let's say Caleb or Jeff, let's say you guys want to create an infographic for this episode and put it together on social or somewhere else. And you don't already have a solution to do that. Where's the first place where you start researching for a product or a solution?
Google. 100% of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Google. Yeah. So it's normally a great starting point. So you start reading about it through Google. So we're like, okay, well, instead of us trying to invest cash to pour into advertising to become a household name, so it's a very expensive play, let's start showing up in places where people who are looking for a product or a solution like ours would naturally come and find us, right? So now we don't have to sell them anything. We just have to provide a solution to a problem. So that journey obviously had lots of ups and downs, but just to give you the overview now, Visme is now getting close to about 3 million in monthly organic traffic. And we're a team of about 100 people, fully profitable, growing at a very healthy rate, and still bootstrapped. So that traffic right now is bringing about 20 to 25,000 new users to our platform every single day without us having to spend a penny. Same level of traffic, if we were to pay AdWords, Google to bring on, would probably cost us close to about 1.5 million bucks a month worth of advertising that we're getting for free, quote unquote. So that sort of journey, what didn't happen overnight, obviously, was quite a lot of trial and errors there. But the main thing that really propelled us forward was in terms of our promotion strategy, because what the mistake a lot of businesses make when it comes to SEO is that they think of it as creating blog posts. They're like, okay, we're going to just write a bunch of blog posts, put on our website, and 99% of the time, you're not going to get any sort of traffic. It's going to be cricket. So I'm happy to dive into sort of how we changed that. But that whole journey of figuring out what was the key to sort of propel us forward. So not only to create content, but how we're going to actually get it ranked in the search results. It led to the creation of Respona, which was the platform that we built to build authoritative backlinks to our website, and which in eyes of Google and other search engines is a vote to popularity. And it was an internal software for us for about 1.5 years. It was sort of our secret sauce. And at some point we were like, guys, this is awesome. Let's put this out as a standalone product. And that's how Respona came to be as a separate product out of Visme.
You know, as a follow-up question to that, so the backlink strategy is interesting and is something we've heard before. As if Google changes their kind of the algorithm and the way they do ranking, how resilient is that approach, given that sometimes Facebook, Google, some of these can do these sort of arbitrary changes without any notice, and all of a sudden it can really destroy the campaign. What are your thoughts? How do you all respond to that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So I need to take you back to late 90s to answer that question.
I remember that. I had more hair in the late 90s.
I was in the process of being born at the time. But as I remember it, Google was not the king of search engines. So they didn't have major market share, the majority market share. They were tons of search engines like Yahoo and AOL and Bing and a bunch of other guys. And Google was a very tiny portion. So the problem with search engines at the time was in their algorithm in terms of the way they were prioritizing search results. So if you go run any sort of keyword, there's hundreds of millions, if not billions, search results for each keyword. So the way they were prioritizing them was based on the content on the webpage. So they're like, okay, let's try to do our best to understand what content is of best quality. And most of the time, what would happen with these algorithms is relying on keyword density and understanding, okay, what's the context of the page. Problem is that marketers ruin everything. So they started basically stuffing keywords and trying to circumvent the algorithm in a way that would seem more relevant for certain key terms. So search results were quite bad. So what Google did back in the late 90s was to develop this algorithm that Larry Page made called PageRank, which is derived from his last name. I always thought it was because they were ranking pages. But anyhow, so the core of the algorithm, which is still the core of Google as a search engine today, and all major search engines, including Bing, is reliant on the concept of backlinks when it comes to determining authority. So basically, similar to how like academic articles, how they're published, the way you can judge them is not a subjective it's not a subjective method by saying, okay, this looks cool. It's based on how many other scientists are actually citing that particular article. So the same principle applies here. So not only now you have to create a good website with good foundation that loads fast and your content, people stay on it long and read and is relevant contextually, but now you also have to go convince other websites to now link back to it and talk about it. So it becomes interesting, isn't it? Now it's not something that's entirely under your control. So it becomes almost impossible for spam websites and a bunch of these websites to go convince other relevant authoritative sources in their space to link back to them. So that's remained one of the only constant ranking factors for over 20 years in Google. And I don't foresee that happening just because that's part of the core algorithm. And what they're getting very smart at is understanding what links are actually natural and what are just, built through shady techniques and spam, which, that's what we're here for, really. Our core motto is don't spam, build relationships. So that's a very long version of saying that I don't foresee that happening in the near future.
Super helpful. Thank you.
And,
no problem.
And so before coming to Startup Junkie, I worked for a publishing company that published a couple magazines and kind of an online publication as well. And then even after coming to Startup Junkie, I would get emails from these folks every day, 2 or 3 emails.
That's right.
So it made more sense when I was with a publishing company. They'd want to submit a blog or an article for us to
That's right.
run. But they even do it here at Startup Junkie. I'll get 2 emails a day with
That's right.
some random person asking, I would love to, just out of the goodness of my heart, submit this article or blog to you to put
That's
on your
right.
website.
Mhm.
And then you get it. And I've bitten several times because the content sounds interesting. And they've sent me those blogs and they're just like, I mean, inundated with hyperlinks, and that's obviously the goal. So
That's right.
tell me about kind of like who those folks are, and kind of like how they like, where's that in that space?
Right.
Like, how's that?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of malpractice here, Caleb,
Mhm.
and the reason why is because, and that's again my personal opinion, take it with a grain of salt, but it's because it's relatively new. So content marketing came as a concept like back in, I think, 2008 or so, when Moz became a thing, and Rand Fishkin had Whiteboard Fridays and teaching people how to write content. So that's when it sort of started taking off. So the concept of link building came after that. So it's really less than a decade, I would say, where it's become a thing. So a lot of marketers are trying to still figure out how to do it. And a lot of people, unfortunately, resort to spam when they don't understand the concept very well. So similar to the way you want to look at it is cold outreach for sales, right? So back in the day, like early 2000s, everybody was sending junk mail and email all over the place. And that sort of chiseled away because it just simply doesn't work. So now, if you look at the sales industry, cold outreach for sales, it's become a lot more sophisticated, right? So there's a lot more tools and a lot more technology here that helps you actually build, meaningful relationships with prospects and personalized pitches, et cetera. So, and it's still a profitable engine. So same thing I look at in the link building industry, where there's still quite a lot of education to be done for marketers not to spam. We invest quite a lot in our own educational material and working with our customer base to introduce different strategies to kind of help them be able to consistently earn these editorial mentions, backlinks, without having to spam.
It's interesting. It's just funny to me because I'll get one of those emails. Sometimes they'll have like their profile or their headshot in the bottom, and if you look at it close enough, you can tell it's like an AI generated like fake person. And
that's right.
Yeah, so it's interesting to hear that from your perspective. So what you guys are doing is link building. What is that? I mean, what is link building?
It's a very broad concept, really. So the way I define it is basically building relationships with relevant publications in your space and collaborating with them. So let me tell you this: you get a ton of these spam messages every day, but as a matter of fact, I'm getting a backlink from startupjunkie.org to Respona as we speak. Quite interesting, isn't it? Let's pause for a moment.
Yeah.
So, not to say that I'm only here to get a backlink. Obviously, so one of the strategies that we advocate for is going as a guest on other people's podcasts, especially if you're a thought leader in a space or you're good at something that you can talk about and add value. So again, let me do a little disclaimer here. I spend my time going on podcasts that I truly love, and I appreciate the content and I respect the hosts. And the main goal for me personally is to build these relationships and meet smart people like yourselves. And at the same time, we are helping you guys provide an episode and provide some content for your audience. And we indirectly benefit from that by introducing Respona as a platform to your audience. And a side effect of that is also you have article you guys would put together, and guess what you need to include in the show notes? Respona. So that unites Google. Now Startup Junkies is a very authoritative website, so that helps them saying that, okay, if Caleb and Jeff are talking about Respona, it must be a relatively authoritative resource, right? So that's going to help us also in the future when we are trying to get our articles or our content pieces ranked and get up in the search results. So there you go. So that's one strategy. I'm spilling all the beans here. So finding out what are some of these. So what one of our team members does, Dylan. Hello, Dylan. If you're listening, he looks up people in our industry whom we respect through Respona, and Respona is plugged into an iTunes search engine called Listen Notes, and it will find all the podcast episodes and interviews that person has been a guest on. So that automatically tells us 3 things. 1, these podcasts accept guests, because not all podcasts do. 2, they're relevant to our space because they've interviewed someone we respect. And also at the same time, it also makes their lives easier as a person to pitch me to come on as a guest, because then now we can use that episode as a hook to personalize the pitch, implying to the host that, hey, we've actually done our research and we believe that we would be a good host for this, or we would be a good guest for this podcast. We're not just blasting all the podcasts with the same template pitch, which I'm sure you guys get quite often because you're one of the top 2.5% podcasts in the iTunes network. So there you go. And then he pitched me, and apparently it worked. Look at me here.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and actually I think it's kind of instructive too, because we've been at this a while, and I think staying with the podcast matters. We do get probably anywhere from 25 to 50 inbound inquiries a week, and we are pretty selective about that. And I've noticed over the course of the last year that the better ones are more personalized.
That's right.
They'll say, hey,
Absolutely.
I just listened to this last episode with so-and-so on there, really enjoyed the comments around this particular area. And so it makes you think this is not just some spam engine. This is really somebody that might have actually paid attention to some of the content. And that builds that rapport right off the bat. Whereas if somebody says, we got so-and-so and they've done this and that, and there's no context there, it's like fill in the blank to the podcast that they're outreaching to, then it's completely different. I'll still send those over to Davis to sort out, but it's a whole lot different feel when it's personalized. So that's right. Really interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that's, again, one out of a gazillion different strategies where we do, but you get the gist of it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not so much about spamming, it's more so about building mutually beneficial collaborations with publications in your space.
You talk mostly about SEO, SEM, and it's the Google search context. Something's got to be done about LinkedIn as well, because right now the number of useful messages and LinkedIn requests I get is about 5% of all the people that link. And in fact, the technique is there's a LinkedIn, a connection request, and the very next thing is they're trying to sell me something. And in some cases, they didn't do any research at all because it's not even in the universe of interest to me. In other cases, it'll be a little closer. But is that an area you're already in or you're heading to? Because there's lots of room for improvement.
Yeah, so we're not really in the sales industry in a way that just simply because we're horrible at it. I'm a terrible salesperson when it comes to outbound. Reason being is the way we structure our companies is entirely inbound. So what Respona, for example, what we do is we produce lots of educational pieces that are targeted for our industry. So it touches all the bases when it comes to the customer journey. So if you're a person newly just put up a website and looking to get more traffic to your website, and then learning about link building, okay, what are some of the link building average templates now? Okay, gotcha. What are some of the link building tools that I can? So all of those bases are hit by specific content pieces, free tools, templates that we build and we put out. Now, in order to make sure these content pieces are at the top of the search results when you look for them, we do some promotion tactics and obviously, through our average strategies that we run all through Respona. Sure. And now what happens is that customers would come and find us, and then they're like, oh, this is an interesting software that I think can help me. Then they will come onto our homepage, learn more about the tool, go sign up for a free trial, become a customer. So our job here is never to sell them anything. Our job is predominantly to support and educate them once they are already a customer. So that to me is a lot more scalable. But again, this is also not to say that this is the right tactic for every kind of business.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
So there's a lot of businesses that this would not work. Like, for example, if you have a, let's say, a medical device company and you sell devices that are 100K plus, SEO is almost worthless. You should hire salespeople who exclusively stick to that, right? Go to hospitals and sell them to doctors. I don't know how medical device industry works. Or if you sell t-shirts, for example, you're a t-shirt company or a fashion brand, you should be making like funny TikTok videos probably, or run ads on Instagram, not focusing so much on SEO. So it's a particular type of company. So I normally have two checks. I'm like, okay, are people aware of the problem you're solving? And two, if so, where are they looking for it? So if the answer to the first question is yes, they're aware of the problem, and two, they're looking for it through Google, then it's almost idiotic for you not to focus on your SEO. So then now you position yourself to start showing up in places where people are who are looking for it that would naturally organically come and find you. That's automatic credibility built because they found you first.
Yep.
And then it's a matter of building a good product, obviously, for retention purposes. So
the Arkansas Inc. podcast provides an in-depth look at the latest industry trends in Arkansas from decision makers, business leaders, and executives. The Arkansas Inc. podcast has focused on a range of business and economic development topics, including small business and entrepreneurship, international business, fintech, workforce development, and community development. Each episode, which are about 30 minutes long, features business leaders and subject matter experts in conversation with knowledgeable members of the AEDC team. Recent guests have included Governor Asa Hutchinson, UAMS Chancellor Dr. Cam Patterson, Conductor Managing Director Dr. Jeff Standridge, and representatives from companies including Amazon, Walmart, IBM, Ozark Integrated Circuits, and more. The goal of the podcast is to help provide more information about Arkansas and its strong business environment to help business owners and executives make the decision to move to or expand in Arkansas. The Arkansas Inc. podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and other podcast apps. Just search for Arkansas Inc. To learn more or subscribe to Arkansas Inc. podcast, visit arkansasedc.com/podcast.
Another little kind of tangential thing I'm curious about. I'd heard recently that when people are in a buying mode and they're looking for a product, they're not even doing Google searches. They're going right to Amazon and doing product searches. Is that an arena that you guys are in as well, or is it strictly around SEO, SEM, and the Google universe?
right. So what we predominantly focus on is helping folks get up in search results for Google. Now, as far as Amazon, so you're referring to e-commerce stores.
Right.
We do have quite a lot of e-commerce brands who use Respona for promotion tactics. And for example, especially, you'd be surprised, a lot of folks in the CBD industry, because there's a lot of, it's a new industry. A lot of people are trying to put out content. So basically hitting those target audiences earlier in the buying journey than later. So building some brand awareness. So, hey, what are some of the benefits of consuming CBD, et cetera? So and then nurturing them down the funnel. Hey, now download our ebook and et cetera. Or for example, get a free sample and you get your email and then they nurture you down the funnel with some email funnels. So we have seen that. Again, it's not really particularly my area of expertise because I'm a software guy, but we have seen people making it work in other industries as well.
Gotcha.
And I'd be curious to hear you speak to. So just kind of going back to earlier in the conversation when you were talking about Visme and Canva and your bootstrap, you didn't have the capital to really kind of try to go out and spend money to carve out market share. Talk us through kind of that thought process, like the choice not to go out and seek venture capital, to kind of fund to that opportunity to go out like Canva was doing, like you were saying.
Right.
Like, talk us through some of that, I guess.
Sure.
Interesting.
So obviously, whether or not Visme raises money, that's not really entirely up to me. That's Paymon's company. He's the CEO. He's the boss. I was just merely an employee. The reason why, so I can only speak to Respona really, since I'm one of the decision makers. To me, venture capital is kind of like rocket fuel. Rocket fuel is good for rockets. You don't put that in a car. That makes sense. So if you're looking to build Facebook, absolutely, go raise a ton of money. The more money, the better, right? At the highest valuation that you possibly could, because you're looking to change the world by building a company that impacts almost every single one of us. And it's a very expensive play. Respona is really a boring company in a way that we built products that people actually want and are willing to pay for, which in nowadays is considered boring, right? Because everybo's building some sort of crypto startup that nobody.
A company that just makes money, right, by solving a real problem.
Yeah. And there's not really I haven't found a really good reason for us to go raise, just simply because we bite as much as we could chew and we spend as much as we earn. So what that means is that I'm not looking to take any profits out of the company per se as dividends. We started obviously with we're self-funded. Obviously it takes some capital to start since there's some fixed costs with software. And then once it starts building revenue, then you increase your expenditure and headcount as your revenue sort of slowly grows over time. And you leave enough comfortable margin for you to have some sales, cushion to fall back on. I think these type of companies have a significantly higher probability of success, because I've seen it happening twice with one of my very close friends, two of my very close friends, who have built insanely successful and very profitable companies, 100 plus employees, still fully bootstrapped. And I've seen them kind of do that and contrast them with a lot of venture-backed companies that unfortunately fail. Not to say that either one is better per se, but I think it's so much has to do with the type of company you're looking to build. So with Respona in particular, haven't found a reason. Now, let's say we hit a point that we're like, okay, we're at 10 million ARR and we kind of sort of saturated our market. I want to start kind of going and poking the big guys. Let's say I want to get into PR and I want to go compete with Cision and Meltwater, some of the, dinosaurs in the industry. So then it would make sense. Yes, let's go raise now $50 million and build a marketing team and a development team and go after some of these big guys. And that would make sense. This risk that would make sense for you to go raise money for. But to start a business that you're looking to stay profitable throughout, I don't particularly see the need for taking that risk of raising.
Yeah, there's not nearly enough press or discussion around the merits of a business that's based on fundamental economics of having revenues out in front of expenses and building something that you can sell right away and not raising venture. I mean, people forget it's low single digits or less than 1% that ever raise institutional VC anyway. And it's not a requirement to build a great business. In fact, we spend way too much time celebrating raising money. It's like nobody ever celebrated going to get a loan. It's a necessary evil. But I just love it. I mean, we've been highlighting that in some recent episodes. Companies that started based on solving a real problem, got the revenues, added team members as they could afford it, and just built great, durable businesses. And not to say there's anything wrong with it. I've done it all ways, and we're active venture investors as well. But I love to see businesses that are based on the fundamental economics of having revenues out in front of expenses and solving real problems. So it's instructive. And thanks for taking us through that. That was really a good story.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'd like to throw this disclaimer out that I'm not against raising money. I think.
Oh, and neither we're in that game, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. You guys are VCs yourselves. So, you never know, maybe 5-10 years from now, and there's an exit with Respona, sure. and I'm like, you know what, I want to start $1 billion company that does this. And yeah, absolutely. Let's now I'm a founder with an exit. Let's go raise some money and kind of make it happen. So I guess it's something that you want to discuss like in a case-to-case basis, case-by-case basis to understand what is the right fit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And right now with the way valuations are getting kind of hammered within the tech sector, it's not a bad time to be bootstrapped, self-funded, seeing how it sorts out. It's a good market from an investment standpoint. It's not a great market from an entrepreneur standpoint.
Exactly.
And so, Farzad, what's next? What's on the horizon for you? And you're in the DC area, correct?
Yes, we are a fully distributed team. So I'm in DC because Payman's in DC. There's no reason for us to be here, really. I'd rather be on a beach right now. So I shouldn't really be here.
We know you're in DC because of the great weather and the low humidity.
I know, right? And no political disruptions. So I wish I had a sexy answer for you, Caleb, as far as, we're going to change the world and we're going to, solve world hunger. But as a matter of fact, what we're really focused on, I would say, it's like I go to sleep thinking about it. I wake up thinking about it. It's just building a better product for our users. So every day we have a very large, I would say, user requests and people who have benefited from our products that are requested and are like, hey, this would really help us if it would work this way. Some ideas that I have personally that I think would make our product really good. So to be honest, all I can answer, just heads down working on a product, improving it every day. And that's sort of our main goal. And we built our marketing channels in a way that in order to scale, doesn't require us to add headcount. So we can continue to scale our top funnel customer acquisition and really focus on retention and upsells once the customer signs up and enters into the product, and we'll see how far it goes, and maybe down the line we want to enter into some of the other markets, but right now our goal is to become the number one solution when it comes to link building. So if you're a company, you're focused on, you've picked SEO as a strategy, as the acquisition channel. And you need to go build backlinks, and we want it to be the top of mind solution, number one solution when it comes to your mind, when it comes to link building software, average software.
That's a good answer. And what I find is the companies that typically are the most successful and regularly having good net promoter score and getting great reviews from customers are the ones that have spent a lot of time in building a really durable culture, company culture. Talk a little bit about how you would describe the culture of your company.
That's a great question, Jeff, but I feel like I'm a little biased here because I hired these guys. So I love every single one of these people.
Right.
So, I mean, if you ask any founder, I'm sure they're like, yeah, we got the best team ever. And as a matter of fact, I do feel like we have the best team ever, simply because I intentionally built a culture of being against micromanagement. So I always tell our teams, like, guys, you guys play the music. I'm the conductor here, just, waving that stick, whatever it's called. So my job is to make sure that you guys are successful and you guys are the best version that you can be. So a lot of our guys have been with us for years, which is unheard of in the startup world, where people drop like flies in retention and turnover. But we've had very good retention with our dev team. Like, our number one employee is still with us today, Alex. Shout out to Alex, our principal engineer. Has been with us for over 3 years, and these guys do their own thing, really. I mean, my job is just to give them direction and help with prioritization. But these guys know what they're doing, and they're very well versed in the product, and they have a very clear cut, I would say, deadlines and objectives, and they do their own thing and deliver and report to each other and talk to each other and do things with each other. And I'm just a clown here, just goes on podcasts and talks to people about Respona. I play a very insignificant role here. But yeah, so that's, I would say, the culture is like, we don't monitor employee. I told the guys, I was like, I don't care when you come to work, when you leave. I don't care how much vacation time you get. It's all up to you. Just let me know so I know you're safe and sound, and do your own thing. And everybody does. And somehow it all works, really. I mean, we have obviously objectives and deadlines to hit. And I don't really care how it gets done. I was like, you guys do your own thing and come up with ways to make it more efficient. And yeah, we're very, I would say, relaxed in a way that there's not constant, big brother pressure, but in a way that we still, obviously, as a bootstrap company, we need to move fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
No, it's a good answer. If you have the highly motivated team that is that takes the initiative, then you can be outcome oriented. And I'll tell you what, I mean, the pandemic re-emphasized the fact that productivity in a lot of large organizations went up during the pandemic, because people were not wasting time with a ridiculous commute and sitting in a cubicle and all that other stuff. And some of them experienced real productivity gains, particularly in the digital world. And so having that strong culture and having outcome oriented people can make a real difference. Sounds like you've done a great job of it. The way we like to land the plane on the podcast, and we're kind of at that point, and I won't tell you what the funniest answer was that we ever had to this question, but if you could put yourself in the time machine and go back before the current venture, maybe at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give your younger self with all that accumulated wisdom you have now?
I would say be patient in a way. I feel like I'm a person who gives myself a very hard time at times, and it's often very difficult for me to feel like I've achieved something successful. I'm always like, this could have been better. We could have done this. And I feel like sometimes now looking back, I'm like, you know what, actually all turned out okay, pretty good. I mean, considering the circumstances and what we had to work with. But my co-founder always tells me, I was like, we should be like, we're 3 months behind on my plan, yada, yada, yada. And then he always tells me, and it's like, Farzad, good things take time. So, and I feel like that's something as I'm growing older and maturing a little over the years, it's becoming more apparent that just kind of putting your best work every day and hope for the best. You can't really control every element, and you kind of have to deal with things as they come.
Great advice. Great advice. Where can our listeners find out more about your company and about you? What's the best way for them to connect?
Sure. Well, our company's name is Respona, Respona.com. And we put out lots of free educational material out there. So if you guys are interested in SEO, definitely head up our blog. Don't go sign up straight away. Read about it a little. And my name is Farzad Rashidi. There aren't a whole lot of us out in this world, so I stick out like a sore thumb normally on LinkedIn. So definitely feel free to stop by and say hi. I always love to connect with folks.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Really great talking to you, and have a fantastic week.
The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.